The Savannah River churned violently after days of relentless rain. Michael Peterson, a 34-year-old wildlife videographer, had been setting up his camera near the Oak Haven Reserve in Eldoria when he spotted something that shattered professional instincts: a lion cub, no older than 4 months, tumbling into the flooded current. For 8 years, Michael had followed the golden rule of wildlife observation: never interfere. But the cub's terrified squeals pierced through that boundary. Without hesitation, Michael dropped his camera and dove into the river. The current was ruthless. As Michael swam, a submerged log struck his shoulder, nearly knocking him out. Still, he pressed on. Reaching the cub, he pulled it close, the tiny creature clutching desperately at his neck. Michael could feel his heart thumping in panic against his chest as he fought his way back toward the shore. He didn't know they were being watched. Hidden among the baobab trees, 5 lionesses and a dark-maned male lion stood still, their amber eyes locked onto scene unfolding in the river. They had been searching for the missing cub and arrived just in time to witness a human risking his life to save one of their own. As Michael staggered into shallow water, soaked and trembling, he froze. The pride had formed a silent semicircle at the riverbank. 6 adult lions. No escape, no weapon, just him and the cub. The matriarch took a step forward. Michael's instincts screamed danger. He had studied lions long enough to know. They were territorial, protective, unpredictable. He braced himself, but the lioness didn't growl, didn't pounce. Her eyes held no threat, only something Michael couldn't quite believe: recognition, and perhaps gratitude. The cub whimpered softly in his arms. The sound broke the silence. Then something extraordinary happened. The lioness stepped into the river, slowly, carefully, stopping just feet away from Michael. Then she lowered her massive head in a bow. It lasted only seconds, but to Michael it felt timeless, a gesture so uncharacteristic. It upended everything he believed about wild predators. When she raised her head again, her gaze met his. It was not the stare of a hunter. It was an acknowledgement. The cub stirred, reaching toward her. The lioness responded with soft, chuffing sounds, familiar, comforting. Michael bent slightly, whispering, "Your family is here, little one." As if she understood, the lioness stepped closer. Then, impossibly, she extended her head and licked Michael's forehead. Her tongue was rough, her breath warm, but the gesture was unmistakable. Not aggression, but acceptance. Michael remained motionless, stunned by the trust she was showing. In that moment, he wasn't just a man in lion territory. He was part of the pride. The other lionesses advanced cautiously, their movements calm. Even the massive male lion, who had held back, approached and laid down near the water, signaling peace. Michael, heart pounding, began moving toward the riverbank. The lions parted as he walked, creating a silent corridor. He knelt on the muddy shore and gently placed a cub down. The matriarch rushed forward, nuzzling her offspring, chuffing and purring with deep relief. The lionesses gathered, touching noses, inspecting the cub. The male approached last, lowering his head to gently brush against the little one. Michael stepped back, soaked, shaking, overwhelmed. He had done the unthinkable, interfere with nature, and nature had responded not with rage, but something close to reverence. As he slowly reached for his camera, still rolling nearby, the lions turned their attention back to the forest, blending into shadows like ghosts. Michael remained crouched, eyes wide, heart full, the weight of what had just occurred pressing down on him. He had no idea what it would mean for science, for human-animal understanding, for his own life. All he knew was this: something ancient had stirred that day on the riverbank. Something wild and sacred had recognized something human, and responded not with tooth and claw, but with grace. And as the last rustle movement faded into the trees, Michael was left alone in the silence, still kneeling in the mud, unsure if the world would ever believe what he had seen. Michael remained kneeling on the riverbank, water dripping from his soaked clothes, as the lion pride gathered around their rescued cub. He should have been terrified. 6 wild predators within striking distance, yet all he felt was awe. He had just witnessed something few humans ever would: a lioness showing trust. Dr. Anya Sharma, a leading wildlife biologist, later reviewed the footage Michael's action camera had captured. Grooming is reserved for Pride members, she noted. For a lioness to groom a human suggests cognitive recognition, a capacity for gratitude we didn't think wild felines possessed. As the cub nestled safely among his family, Michael began to slowly retreat. But then the matriarch looked up and released a soft, rumbling call unlike anything Michael had heard in 8 years of filming Eldoria's wildlife. It wasn't aggressive. It was inviting. Immediately, the pride stirred and repositioned themselves into 2 lines, forming a pathway that led from Michael to his abandoned camera equipment under the baobab tree. His breath caught. Are they escorting me out? The matriarch stepped to Michael's right. The massive male lion took position on his left. The others flanked him, forming a living honor guard. With a slow, deliberate pace, they began walking, guiding Michael out of the riverbank clearing. Over 1,500 pounds of apex predators walked beside him, not as hunters, but as guardians. The cub, trotting beside his mother, brushed against Michael's leg every few steps, as though claiming him. When they reached Michael's gear, the lion stopped. The matriarch approached one final time. She studied his face, then pressed her forehead gently against his. It was a behavior scientists would later confirm as a lion's way of greeting a trusted Pride member. "Thank you," Michael whispered, unsure whether she understood, but meaning every word. The matriarch stepped back and chuffed softly. One by one, each lion approached. The females rubbed against his legs. Even the male lion bumped his shoulder gently before walking away. Last came the cub. He sat before Michael, tilted his head, and gave a soft mew, almost like a thank you. Michael knelt and stroked the cub's head, his throat tight. The pride turned and moved toward the distant trees. Michael, still soaking and stunned, stood watching them disappear. His camera had recorded every moment. The footage quickly went viral and caught the attention of global media, conservationists, and scientists. Dr. Jane Goodall herself called it one of the most extraordinary acts of interspecies recognition ever recorded. Yet for Michael, it wasn't about fame or validation. It was about the truth he had lived in those moments. Animals feel recognized and sometimes return kindness. Over the next year, Michael continued filming in Oak Haven Reserve. To his astonishment, he encountered the same pride on multiple occasions. Each time, the matriarch would chuff softly in greeting, and the now-grown cub would approach his vehicle calmly, even lying in the shade it cast. Guides began calling Michael Cub's brother. Tourists flocked to see the man who had, if only briefly, been accepted into a lion pride. Inspired by the event, Dr. Sharma founded the Peterson Wildlife Research Foundation, aimed at studying advanced emotional behavior in wild animals. Michael's experience reveals that the emotional divide between humans and animals is not as wide as we once believed, she wrote in a landmark paper. Gratitude, honor, and moral memory, these aren't uniquely human. We just haven't looked closely enough. Michael himself never saw lions the same way again. For him, they were no longer just subject of lens, but creatures of deep connection. On quiet nights, when the air buzzed with the sounds of Eldoria, he often thought of the cub's tiny paws around his neck, the rough tongue against his forehead, the formation to the tall grass, and the look in the matriarch's eyes that said, "Without words, we saw you and we remember." And somewhere in the vast golden savanna, a lion still walked the land, strong, proud, and alive, because a man had chosen to leap into a river, not as a scientist, but as a human being,